Hi, I'm Katie Ziskind. I'm the owner of Wisdom Within Counseling and Coaching. You can learn more about working with myself and my team of specialists by heading over to wisdomwithinct.com. That's wisdomwithinct.com. This video is all about understanding if you or your spouse needs help with a sexual addiction, pornography addiction, masturbation addiction, or even like a gambling addiction or alcoholism. Sometimes we have these addictions that develop as a result of, numbing out or negative emotions that we're trying to mask or fill a void. So a lot of times I work with couples who struggle with infidelity, gambling addictions, sex addictions, pornography addictions, and compulsive behaviors around sex. So sex, drugs, and rock and roll can be reaching for that high or that dopamine rush. And oftentimes these are very, very damaging for your marriage. So when you have infidelity, an extramarital affair, or you have been watching pornography compulsively and in secret and keeping a lot of these sexual behaviors a secret, it can be very damaging for your marital bond. So here are some questions that you can think about when it comes to knowing if you're compulsively using pornography or if your marriage needs help. So if you answer yes to any of these questions, I would love to work with you. Are you watching pornography compulsively or masturbating compulsively to numb out an uncomfortable feeling? Have you felt anxious, angry, unwanted, or lonely, and you want something to make you feel better? Are you trying to push away uncomfortable feelings, such as feelings of rejection from your partner, feelings of loneliness in your marriage, and now you're compulsively using pornography, masturbation, or even going to a subscription website, or even having an affair? Emotional affairs are just as damaging as a physical or sexual affair. Have you noticed yourself pulling away, avoiding your partner, or withdrawing and self-isolating as a result of wanting to use pornography or masturbate by yourself instead of engaging with your real-life partner? Does your sex addiction or the behaviors of pornography addiction or talking about women's bodies in an objectifying way, or even gambling or alcoholism, do any of these addictions run in your family? Do you have a grandparent or a father or a mother who struggled with addictions like this? Because there can be a generational pattern when it comes to sexual addiction. As a result of your pornography, masturbation, or sex addiction, have you noticed issues like erectile dysfunction or premature ejaculation, where your body has now been conditioned to only become aroused by the pornographic material or through the fantasy-based material that you're watching or viewing? And now you're no longer really able to sexually become connected with a real-life partner or sexually perform. Have you noticed that your expectations with your real-life partner have changed? Maybe your expectations have become really unrealistic. You're comparing your real-life partner's body, sounds, or sexual behaviors to what you're watching in porn, and maybe even expecting your real-life partner to live up to the porn stars that you're watching, which is often impossible to do. And maybe you even have expectations for your own body where you're comparing how long you can stay erect with what you're watching in porn. People in pornography are taking medications, and actors and actresses, they're cut scenes, things are edited out. And so sometimes you might even try to compare yourself to what you're watching in porn and feel like you have to live up to an unrealistic standard. The other piece is wondering and asking yourself and gaining this awareness if you have had trauma in your life, because trauma creates a lot of big feelings, and trauma can be a big reason why addictive behaviors develop. So we can have trauma from sexual assault growing up. We can have trauma from living through a massive hurricane. We can have trauma from experiencing the loss of a loved one, loss of a child, loss of a spouse. We can also have trauma from a job where we've had a job that we don't enjoy, or even had a major traumatic experience at work, seeing someone die. So trauma leads to feelings of helplessness, and that can also be a root of sexual addiction. Also too, it's really important to look at how we've been taught what sex means or how to talk about sex growing up. A lot of us grow up in cultures where sex is taboo and shameful. So we grow up in a shame-based culture or a guilt-based culture where, you might be turning to pornography for sex education. But sex education doesn't come from pornography. It comes from working with a professional like myself who's trained and has extensive training in sex and intimacy with couples. But when you grow up in an environment where your parents or caregivers never talked with you about your body, never taught you about sex, never said the word vulva, never taught you what an orgasm is, never taught you about body boundaries or unwanted touch, or birth control or anything, we often grow up seeking information and we turn to pornography as a result, which can lead to a shame, guilt, and secrecy cycle around using pornography later in life. So you may have turned to pornography to understand sex, but now find yourself in a compulsive relationship where you're using pornography, sex, affairs, talking with other people outside of your marriage to numb out uncomfortable feelings. And this can be relationship coaching and counseling can be a safe place to gain awareness and sex positive education where you can talk with your spouse about sex, talk about your sexual needs, talk about how you feel sexually rejected in the safe place that I provide you on video, rather than feeling like you can't go to your partner or you have to turn to infidelity as a result, and being stuck in this vicious cycle of secrecy, shame, and guilt. So if you've been using pornography, sex, or infidelity, or gambling, or alcoholism in secret, this often leads your spouse to feel betrayal. So now we're dealing with a betrayal trauma in your marriage. So that's a really big piece of what I work on. Part of healing from a sex addiction and any type of addictive behavior is stepping away from the cycle of secrecy, which means understanding that any sort of secret keeping, whether it's about the credit card debt or about you talking with another person on the internet, that secrecy creates dysfunction in your marriage. And in order to have a healthy, loving marriage, we have to be open, vulnerable, and honest. So you need to talk with your spouse about various aspects of your life. You need to talk about what's stressing you out at work, the things that bring you excitement, parenting, finances, your sex life, social interactions, boundaries with friends, boundaries with in-laws, responsibilities, the mental load. All of these aspects that are going on in your life do need to be talked about. And so I give you a safe place to process these aspects of your life and build a sense of vulnerability and connection together. So we also know too that when someone is engaging in an addiction, they're seeking connection, they're seeking dopamine. Dopamine is a chemical in your brain that makes you feel like you're high. It makes you feel excited, makes you feel calm, it makes you feel happy. But when we're seeking dopamine from an addiction, we're also experiencing shame, anxiety, and guilt. And oftentimes accompanying shame, anxiety, and guilt is self-hatred or self-criticism. And then you're left with this crash after chasing that dopamine high. So it's better to gain positive coping strategies so that you can actually feel content, confident, grounded, centered, and attuned to your own emotional environment inside of yourself rather than trying to escape. From there, from that sense of, coping in a positive way, that sense of self-care and self-acceptance, whatever you feel, you can then pour that like fuel into your marriage to create a safe, supportive marital bond. And that allows you to talk about your emotions and your sexual needs in a healthy way. And at Wisdom Within Counseling and Coaching, we specialize in sex and intimacy. So you may look back on your life and you might say, wow, I've really had a sexual addiction or a pornography addiction or even alcoholism or a food addiction for many years. And this is something that has caused damage in various relationships that I've been in. And so now with your spouse, you're really wanting to talk about all the different aspects of your addiction. Maybe you've had an addiction to financially spending money online, or there have been other challenges that you want to talk about and the negative consequences that have gone with them. So if you're struggling with a sex addiction, you may have spent hundreds and thousands of dollars in credit card debt on OnlyFans or another subscription website. Or perhaps you've spent money taking your affair partners out to concerts, fancy dinners, buying plane tickets, and also gambling and on alcohol. Maybe you've gotten a sexually transmitted infection. A lot of these are negative consequences that are a result of an addiction. So when you're engaging in an addiction, it's very hard for you to make healthy, sound decisions that support your personal health and the health of your marriage. When it comes to infidelity, it's incredibly painful to experience. So your spouse is considered the betrayed partner. And so infidelity is not just a physical intimacy element. Yes, physically having sex with someone is a form of infidelity, but there can also be forms of emotional cheating that breach trust in your relationship. And anytime trust is broken, that damages the emotional connection in your marriage. So it's really important to understand that affairs and infidelity and unfaithfulness can take many different forms. So in a monogamous marriage, you're committing to sexual exclusivity, and that is expected in a committed relationship. But there can be other behaviors that cross the line. Maybe you're talking online with someone in a more intimate way, or you have an intimate relationship with a coworker. And it's not necessary to engage in a physical affair to cause your spouse to feel betrayed and to shatter the trust in your marriage. So just because there's no physical sex occurring, there can be many different versions of an affair that fall under sex addiction. So you could be engaging in a sexual chat with someone online, sending naked photos of yourself, sending flirty messages with someone in secret behind your spouse's back, engaging in sexual conversations with someone else who's not your partner, deleting conversations after you've had them, participating in virtual sex. Also, pornography addiction and compulsive pornography use can interfere with your sexual and emotional connection in your marriage. So you might be using pornography to try to fulfill sexual needs that should be met by your partner. And by engaging in pornography, you end up inhibiting and blocking your partner from being able to fulfill those needs. So your partner then feels betrayed, inadequate, insecure, self-conscious, may even have body image issues and low self-esteem and feel rejected because of your pornography use. And so when we look at affairs, we also have instances of what we would call micro-cheating. So any sort of part of your life that you're keeping hidden from your partner is a form of micro-cheating. So let's say you go out to lunch and you're going out to lunch with someone that maybe if your partner knew about, they'd feel a certain way about that. If you keep that hidden from your partner, that's a form of micro-cheating. Micro-cheating doesn't necessarily involve physical or emotional intimacy, but it's any sort of action that would make your spouse or your partner feel uncomfortable or betrayed. And that actually falls under a sex addiction if you can't stop these behaviors. So couples counseling, as well as individual counseling, helps you rebuild trust. And our team is exceptionally trained in helping you and your partner work through the pain and the breach of trust and really begin this process of healing. So working through sex addiction together as a couple is a very important piece of recovering from pornography addiction, infidelity, affairs, compulsive masturbation issues, because there's a communication error or communication issue. So I teach you how to rebuild your couple bubble. I teach you about emotional intimacy skills with your partner and how to really understand the impact of these behaviors. Because a lot of times we're coming from a place of seeking that dopamine. So we don't really yet fully understand how these actions have affected each other. So part of rebuilding trust means being transparent in your communication, being honest, being accountable, sharing your daily activities, being open about your emotional struggles, and allowing your partner to ask you questions about how you feel, even if it's a little bit unfamiliar. Counseling with me and my team gives you healthier, more holistic, and positive ways of managing uncomfortable emotions. You can have a safe place to talk about your sexual needs, sexual expectations, sexual boundaries, what's not okay, what is okay, and start to break this obsessive compulsive use of pornography, affairs, masturbation, and infidelity, as well as alcoholism and gambling. All these addictive behaviors and really improve the communication and intimacy in your marriage. So it's really important to understand that if you're struggling, you're not alone. These behaviors are very common. It's 2024. A lot of times we have to work on identifying our triggers. Maybe you're using these addictive behaviors to soothe feeling rejected by your spouse. It's much more worthwhile to learn in a relationship coaching or counseling session how to communicate how rejected you feel with your partner, rather than turning to an addictive behavior that you've relied on in the past. So counseling teaches you healthy coping strategies and tools and alternatives. You don't have to keep turning to this vicious, harmful, self-sabotaging cycle of pornography addiction, sex addiction, gambling addiction, alcoholism, and infidelity. You can actually find tangible ways to stay grounded in the present moment. You can learn deep breathing and meditation skills. We tailor these to your specific needs and triggers so that you can lower anxiety. You can learn to process your emotions in a healthy way and verbalize your needs. A lot of times we don't know how to say, I really need to know I matter to you, or I really need appreciation, or I really need a hug right now. A lot of times we just turn away and self-isolate, self-sabotage, and avoid. And that really needs to be a part of that couples therapy experience. So we integrate both couples therapy and individual therapy when it comes to understanding triggers for sex addiction and other addictions, and also recovering as a marital unit. So it's very important to address this in a couples therapy format because it does affect you both. So if you're looking to get started in counseling for sex addiction, alcoholism, and infidelity to really recover so you can get your couple bubble strong, healthy, you can communicate in a playful way about even the most sensitive topics that might in other times of your marriage cause a conflict or a blow up, I would love to support you in doing so. I specialize in sex and intimacy, so I am a certified sex therapy informed professional. I'm Gottman Level 2 trained, so I'm trained by Dr. Julie and John Gottman in how to build trust and commitment in your marriage. And also I am a marriage therapist, so I'm licensed in a variety of different states as a licensed marriage and family therapist. And I would love to help you build a strong, healthy, caring, meaningful connection in your bond after betrayal trauma. So after some sort of betrayal, infidelity, or an addiction of some kind has caused a wound, and it almost feels so helpless and irreparable, but it is possible. There is hope. You're not alone. I specialize with couples who need help repairing after betrayal in the realms of sex and intimacy. If you or your partner are struggling with a sex or intimacy addiction of some kind that have caused a betrayal or a trauma wound, I would love to support you. You can book to work with me by heading over to wisdomwithinct.com. That's wisdomwithinct.com. I'm Katie Ziskin, and I hope you had a really positive experience of this video and felt like we could remove some of the shame and the guilt that our culture puts on sex and start to talk more openly about sex with your partner. And I hope you have a great day.